let us discuss points to remember about nonmetals. Nonmetals always gain electrons. Nonmetals have 5, 6 or 7 valence electrons. Nonmetals form electronegative ions. Nonmetals have valency -1, -2 or -3. Let us try to understand these with the help of example of oxygen. Oxygen is the 8th element in the periodic table and therefore has an atomic number of 8. It has an electronic configuration 2, 6, 2 electrons in the K shell and 6 electrons in the L shell. Now as we can clearly see that since it has 6 electrons in the outermost shell, it is not a stable atom, because for any atom to be stable, it should be following the 2 rules of stability. Either it should have 8 electrons here in the L shell, or it could be having just 2 electrons in its K shell. If it has 2 electrons only in the K shell, it would be following the duplet rule. And if it has 8 electrons here in the L shell, it would be following the octet rule. Now it could achieve the two things by either gaining 2 electrons here in the L shell or losing 6 electrons. Now since it has 6 electrons in its valence shell, it does not follow the octet rule and is not said to be a stable atom. It could achieve stability by either losing 6 electrons from its outermost shell or gaining 2 electrons in its outermost shell. But oxygen prefers to gain 2 electrons and in turn follow the octet rule. Now, what is the reason? If it is going to gain 2 electrons here, it is going to involve less energy. If it loses 6 electrons, losing 6 electrons is going to involve more energy. And thus, oxygen prefers to gain 2 electrons. And this is so because less energy is involved in gaining 2 electrons rather than losing 6 electrons. Thus, oxygen becomes stable by gaining 2 electrons. Now, let us try to understand this with the help of this equation and then the orbital structure for oxygen. Now, oxygen atom as in its atomic form is unstable since its electronic configuration is 2, 6. When it gains 2 electrons, total electrons were 8 earlier. Since its atomic number is 8, so total electrons were 8. When it gains 2 more, now total number of electrons becomes 10. Therefore, the electronic configuration changes to 2, 8. Earlier it was an unstable atom, now it becomes a stable oxide ion. O2 negative is also known as oxide ion. So, let's understand this with the help of orbital structure. So, oxygen atom has 8 protons and 8 neutrons in its nucleus, has 2 electrons in its first orbit and 6 electrons in the second orbit. When it gains 2 electrons, now it is becoming stable. And when we say it has become stable, it has now, we can clearly see 8 electrons in its outermost shell. Since it gained 2 electrons, and we can clearly see that now protons are still the same, 8 protons in the nucleus, but there are 10 electrons outside, 2 in the first shell, 8 in the second shell, 2 plus 8, that is 10. Total 10 electrons are there. Electrons are 2 more than the protons, and so it gets a negative charge. This is how oxygen atom forms an oxide ion, and this is how we can understand that a non-metal on gaining electrons is getting a negative charge. Now at any point in time, if you are not clear with the very basic concepts of how any atom is getting a charge, you can refer to the video links shared in the description box. Thank you.